Thunder comes. Zzzzzzz. Reggie clearly wasn't planning to spare Xiao Yan, and judging by the ferocity of his attack, it was obvious he was intent on eliminating Xiao Yan with a single strike. Thunder attribute of the mid-stage of 7-star Do Xian. Whoosh, this really is a formidable opponent. Looking at Reggie, whose body was surrounded by black and red thunder, Xiao Yan could sense a destructive and malevolent aura emanating from the thunder. The intensity of the fluctuations was such that, even in his peak state, he would only be able to withstand a grievous injury. If he was even the slightest bit careless, his situation could turn disastrous. But I still have to try. Besides, that thing seems to have a very important role for me. After a brief pause, Xiao Yan's body surged with power, and the amber-colored sacred flame flickered wildly like a fire spirit. It seemed to sense the terrifying power of the black-red thunder and began to burn intensely, igniting the eerie space around them. Die! Seeing Xiao Yan's actions, Reggie's hand raised, and countless black-red thunders surged towards his palm. A thunderous evil palm quietly appeared. Soul Shadow. Xiao Yan's pupils contracted tightly. His power once again surged to the late stage of 6-star Do Xian, and with the help of his dual domains and battle soul, a heavy pressure radiated out. Netherworld Death Palm. Watching Xiao Yan struggle like an ant, Reggie laughed, lifting his hand. At that moment, a heavy aura pressed down from the forces of heaven and earth, causing Xiao Yan's Do Qi to slow within his body under the gaze of the black-red thunderous evil palm. Soul Power. Basha's Mark. Block it for me. Watching the unstoppable attack, Xiao Yan snorted coldly, using all his might to resist with every technique at his disposal. Boom. The scorching flame energy spread out like a spring, but Xiao Yan's figure rapidly crumbled, clearly unable to withstand the attack. Creak, creak. A sharp metallic sound of collision echoed through the eerie space. What is this? How could it withstand my attack? Reggie looked incredulously at the mysterious object at the center of the explosion. His previous attack was enough to obliterate any powerhouse at the perfect 5-star Do Xian level. So how could this happen? This is the ancient fire ruler? Xiao Yan's soul power suddenly surged. Just as he was preparing to counter the next attack, he froze when he saw the ancient fire ruler, his heart tightening with shock. Whom! At this moment, the dazzling ancient fire ruler was vastly different from before. It hovered majestically in midair within the domain, resembling a rainbow. The 22 colored patterns on it, like fine divine runes, tightly adhered to the ruler's body, causing its aura to change drastically. An immortal artifact, but its aura seems off. Reggie immediately noticed the ancient fire ruler and spoke coldly. The fiery patterns on the ruler seemed to carry an immense power, and even he didn't dare to underestimate it. Wait, this level of fluctuation is definitely not that of an immortal artifact. Amber Rock Soul Flame, go. The next moment, Xiao Yan's pupils flickered as, combining past experiences, his palms slowly rubbed against the ruler, and a resonance emanated from the ruler's body, as if it were greedily seeking something from him. Is this sacred flame? Rustle, rustle. Watching Xiao Yan reveal his trump card, Reggie's gaze grew dark and ominous. The black-red thunder domain expanded, completely enveloping the two of them. Boom! With Xiao Yan's strike, the ancient fire ruler, after absorbing the 4-colored sacred flame and the amber rock soul flame, underwent a transformation. The 22 types of foreign fire patterns on the ancient fire ruler were wiped away by Xiao Yan, causing it to shine with a renewed vitality, even emitting an aura that surpassed the heavens. I didn't expect you had sacred flame within you, and its ranking seems quite high. And this ruler, it seems like a good item. Kid, to fall at my hands, you should consider it an honor. Let me inherit such a thing from you. Ha ha ha. In the black-red domain, countless bolts of lightning wriggled on the ground like a swamp, each movement releasing terrifying and sharp waves of power. The sheer might of these thunders was enough to make one's blood freeze. You really intend to do this? Ruler, come. At this moment, Xiao Yan's palm, wrapped in the amber sacred flame, tightly gripped the ancient fire ruler, which was now in its strange state. Stop! The moment Xiao Yan gripped the ancient fire ruler, a powerful repulsion force surged from the ruler, violently shaking his internal organs, making his breath erratic. Flame mantra. In this critical moment, Xiao Yan closed his eyes to focus, activating his most mysterious technique. Waves of Do Qi and sacred flame, refined by the flame mantra, rushed toward the ancient fire ruler. Slowly, the ruler regained its calm. However, at that moment, the ancient fire ruler seemed to have been affected by Xiao Yan's sacred flame, triggering some strange transformation. The power contained within it was enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. I don't have time to waste here. One move to decide it all. Holding the ancient fire ruler, Xiao Yan felt an overwhelming surge of power flowing from it, nourishing his body. He felt that with just a single strike, he could annihilate Reggie. In that moment, Xiao Yan felt like the god of death, holding the power of life and death, his sacred qi soaring, looking down upon all life. Reggie, in his eyes, was nothing more than a speck in the vast ocean. What is this guy up to? At this moment, Reggie sensed a supreme power emanating from Xiao Yan, one that rivaled his own, making his heart flutter with unease. For some reason, when Reggie gazed at the faintly glowing ancient fire ruler in Xiao Yan's hand, a wave of extreme anxiety washed over him. His eyelids twitched uncontrollably. The 22 flame markings on the ruler seemed like ancient runes, slowly gathering under the scorching heat of Xiao Yan's amber flame, about to transform into an unfathomable, mysterious power. Stop with your tricks. Thunder punishment. 9 wicked thunder punishments. Seeing Xiao Yan's strange behavior, Reggie unleashed a barrage of black-red thunder, which eventually transformed into 9 columns of black-red lightning, swirling around him. Each column of lightning was covered in intricate black-red patterns, resembling sinister runes drawn by an evil god. It seemed that each pattern contained an evil power capable of annihilating all living things. Let's see. Boom. Xiao Yan spoke softly, his voice calm, as he directed the ancient fire ruler toward Reggie. Vroom. The moment Xiao Yan spoke, the ancient fire ruler erupted with a dazzling light and sound. At that moment, the 22 fire markings, drawn by the ancient flame runes, rapidly fused into the body of the ruler. Is that a sacred inscription? An artifact? How is that possible? At that moment, the entire thunder domain trembled, as countless lightning bolts shivered in fear. They were afraid, terrified, trembling, and the source of this fear was the ancient fire ruler in Xiao Yan's hand. At the same time, Xiao Yan seemed to be in some sort of unique enlightenment, feeling his mind dizzy. It was as if an ancient voice, like the true voice of a divine seat, echoed constantly in his mind. Sacred inscriptions shining upon the world, evil flooding the land, divine light appearing, the seeds of darkness awakening, and the great battle beginning. This was a prophecy and the belief of the entire great thousand worlds. How is this possible? How could you possess an artifact? How could you possess sacred flame? This can't be real. As Xiao Yan entered his moment of comprehension, Reggie's legs weakened, and the thunderous power surrounding him was completely shattered by the sacred inscription on the ancient fire ruler. Even the evil Do Qi within Reggie's body disobeyed him, and he was left sitting on the ground like a useless puppet. On the other side, Xiao Yan gripped the ancient fire ruler tightly. In the center of the ruler's body, a light marking surrounded by multicolored flames formed an ancient, king character that illuminated the entire domain, radiating a powerful aura of imprisonment and divine might, evoking an overwhelming sense of unease. Creak. With a soft sound, the imperial flame ring, which Xiao Yan had kept hidden within him, appeared on his finger, releasing a faint image of a massive, ancient dragon awakening from slumber. The image seemed to be a venerable elder from the ancient times, seated calmly. Sacred inscriptions shining upon the world, evil flooding the land, divine light appearing, the seeds of darkness awakening, and the great battle beginning. This was a prophecy and the belief of the entire great thousand worlds. What does this mean? Xiao Yan whispered as he slowly opened his eyes, muttering the same incantation. The moment the ancient fire ruler underwent its transformation, this phrase had kept echoing in Xiao Yan's mind. How do you know this prophecy? At this moment, Reggie's battle spirit faltered, as if overwhelmed by endless fear. He raised his head with difficulty, looking at Xiao Yan, who seemed like an insurmountable presence. It's over. Xiao Yan shook his head gently, raising his hand. The ancient fire ruler, empowered by the king, bang, bang, bang. With a gentle strike, no energy fluctuations were caused. Only a brilliant flame of light shot toward Reggie with killing intent. Before he could react, a mighty force of heaven and earth pressed down, and without any other sound, Reggie's figure was utterly shattered and destroyed by the strike, turning into ashes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After easily slaying Reggie, the thunder domain dissipated, returning the space to its dark and eerie state. However, the sacred inscription on the ancient ruler of heavenly flames also vanished like a fleeting dream. Even Xiao Yan, drained of strength, collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily. As for the prophecy, he would have to ponder it after the battle was over. That strike, which seemed plain and unremarkable, only Xiao Yan knew, consumed 90% of his strength. Moreover, the change in the ancient ruler of heavenly flames was clearly related to the amber rock soul flame inside him, though the specifics were unclear to him. Such a blow consumed most of his strength, and he seemed to sense through his soul power and the sacred flame that this level of attack wasn't even the full potential of the ancient ruler of heavenly flames. Despite activating the sacred inscription, it seemed the ruler hadn't fully revealed its true glory yet. It seemed this item might truly be one of the artifacts from the Great Thousand Worlds. Master, the leader of Reggie has been slain by that kid with immortal soul power. There were no violent energy fluctuations, and both his soul and body were destroyed. He must have something extraordinary on him, Gamma said as he and others from the evil tree crown cast their gaze toward Xiao Yan. He's not going to cause us much trouble now. We have other important matters to attend to. Rock Sin Envoy, he's on his last breath, so I'll leave him to you. If you can't handle him, then you shall die in repentance. The leader, Mar, said, his eyes fixed on a dark corner of the evil tree. Yes, master. At those words, a sinister figure shot toward Xiao Yan from the tree crown. However, the figure's gaze on Xiao Yan seemed odd, as if they were familiar with each other. Swoosh, swoosh. Master Mar, with such a grand feast, how could we from the Soul Hall be absent? Don't you think so? After a moment, Mar's eyes locked onto a spot, and the space trembled violently. With a loud crash, the space shattered, and thick, eerie black mist surged out. The mist swirled and quickly formed dozens of black shadows that appeared like ghosts. Has the Soul Hall finally arrived? Mar smiled faintly, seemingly having anticipated this. The Mystic Hall Master and Yellow Hall Master of the Soul Hall truly hold us in high regard, Gamma said as he took the lead, the group tightly protecting the evil cauldron. 8-star Docian? Looks like the Soul Hall's power isn't as simple as it seems, Xiao Yan mused as he continued circulating the flame mantra to recover his Do Qi. While moving and avoiding the rocks in Envoy's pursuit, he observed the two leaders among the dozen or so black shadows emerging from the dark passage. A chill ran down his spine, and fear gnawed at him. Now we know the overall strength of the Soul Hall. At the bottom, they have 12 Soul Lords serving them, followed by the 5 Soul Guards. Above them are the 4 great Hall Masters of Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow. And at the top, probably the leader of the Soul Hall himself. Xiao Yan thought to himself, forming a clear target. For some reason, he felt that the Sin, the Soul Hall, and the extraterritorial evil clan had some strange connection. Master Mar's work truly makes us ashamed. No wonder our Hall Master has always been concerned about it, said one of the Hall Masters, their figure cloaked in a black robe. Despite the hidden appearance, an invisible aura emanated from them, making the atmosphere heavy. This is a fine item. If we take it back, the Hall Master will surely be pleased. I wonder if Lord Mar would be willing to part with it. The Mystic Hall Master eyed the agate-like fruit inside the evil cauldron with greed. Then let's see if you have the strength to take it. Block them. Only 10 minutes left. Once the fruit fully ripens, we will win this time. Mar's pupils constricted at the words. The dark green energy immediately enveloped both himself and the evil cauldron, fully protecting it. Countless humans and sea beasts on the evil tree shot toward the evil cauldron, and at that moment, the agate-like fruit inside the cauldron began to glow with an eerie light, showing signs of ripening. Everyone, treat our old friends well. Soul Wuji, leave the others to you. I'll deal with Mar myself, all right? Mystic Hall Master, Soul Wuji, smiled faintly, then immediately led the Soul Hall experts to attack the Sin envoys. Come out. Amidst the fierce battle, only Mystic Hall Master, Soul Flame, stood quietly beside the treetop, watching as Mar merged with the evil cauldron, turning into a dark green blood mist. He spoke softly. Heh, Soul Flame, what is the point of this? We, the Sin, are collaborating with your Soul Hall to bring the extraterritorial evil forces into the Great Thousand Worlds. Then, the Great Thousand Worlds will have a place for us. Soul Flame's voice had barely fallen when the space around the evil cauldron suddenly collapsed, and a green-haired, elegant man stepped out gracefully. No, our Soul Hall is different from you. How so? You are willing to be lapdogs of the extraterritorial evil forces, but we, the Soul Hall, are different. The Great Thousand Worlds will eventually belong to us. As soon as the words were spoken, a great battle was about to break out. The battle between two early 8-star Docian experts and the chaotic conflict surrounding the evil fruits conspiracy had begun. Strange. This Sin envoy only has the strength of a mid-stage 6-star Docian, but why does he always keep his distance from me? And judging by his demeanor, it seems he holds no ill will toward me? Xiao Yan, while concealing his presence and moving swiftly in the shadows, couldn't help but wonder as he observed the Rock Sin envoy pursuing him. Sure, Xiao Yan, it's me. Just as Xiao Yan was puzzled, a wave of soul power from the Rock Sin envoy entered his mind. Jixian? Xiao Yan was startled by the voice. It's me, Xiao Yan. I have to follow Mar for some matters, so? Jixian, still cloaked in black, continued to pursue Xiao Yan in his guise as a Rock Sin envoy, pretending to want to kill Xiao Yan. However, each attack was precise, not causing significant harm to Xiao Yan. What's going on with Mar and Soul Hall? Xiao Yan asked while moving. Mar is studying the demon fruit. He wants to recreate a whole new attribute. As for me, I was originally investigating Water Abyss City for the princess's election, but I never expected to be caught up in this. Xiao Yan, no matter whether the demon fruit matures or not, we can't let these guys get their hands on it, or the consequences will be dire. Jixian said in a deep voice. I know, but with just the two of us, it seems. Xiao Yan trailed off. Don't worry, with their power, even if we can't obtain it, we can destroy it. All right. The two quickly came to an agreement, but they were merely pretending to fight. In reality, they were quietly gathering their strength, waiting for the final battle. The other experts, preoccupied with dealing with the Soul Hall army, naturally didn't notice this scene. On the other side, Mystic Hall Master, Soul Wuji, led the Soul Hall experts, completely overpowering the Sin envoys led by Jiama, leaving them in disarray. Victory was surely just a matter of time. It's rare that a protector from the Sin would risk his life for a Sin warden. From the canopy of the evil tree, Soul Flame looked coldly at the elegant man in front of him, speaking softly. With their Soul Hall's intelligence network, it was easy for them to know the power structure within the Sin. At the bottom were the Sin guards, followed by the Sin envoys, then the Sin wardens. Above them were a few extremely powerful individuals known as the Protectors. These Protectors were strong and existed to protect the weaker, but special individuals within the Sin. I am White Protector. Today, I am here only to protect Lord Mar. If you know what's good for you, leave now. At this moment, a silver-feathered fan appeared in the Protector's hand. With every flick, a sinister, dark force spread from the evil tree, the power feeling as if it were a supreme creature atop the food chain, gazing down at ants from the clouds. Spare me the empty words. Who will claim the stag's life? It's still uncertain. Soul Flame smiled faintly, seemingly confident in his victory. As soon as the words were spoken, Soul Flame and White Protector clashed, launching an all-out assault. Soul Flame made the first move, leaping into the air above the nest. With a flick of his hands, a torrent of blood mist shot out from his body, engulfing White Protector. Within the swirling blood mist, countless vengeful spirits with bared teeth and hungry mouths roared like vicious dogs, frantically trying to devour White Protector's flesh and absorb his evil power. A mere trick, White Protector scoffed, then gently flicked the silver feather fan in his hand. A dark, ominous wind suddenly surged from the fan, easily dispersing the blood mist. An evil artifact, huh? Looking at the White Protector, who remained unfazed, but Soul Flame's eyes clearly detected that the silver feather fan was no ordinary weapon. But you're underestimating me. Blood-devouring heaven, Soul Lock. Moments later, an eerie light burst from Soul Flame's eyes. His figure moved, and immediately, piercing sounds rang out from beneath his black robe. Dozens of jet-black chains shot out like venomous snakes, without pause, rushing toward the White Protector. These chains carried an ominous corrosive power, sending chills down the spine. One fan. Seeing Soul Flame's method, the White Protector's eyes darkened with malevolent ink. The silver feather fan in his hand gently stirred, and in an instant, a pillar of ink-colored energy morphed into an evil long sword, resisting the ominous chains. Clink, clink, clink. The two figures crossed through the sky, their ink-colored longsword and pitch-black chains constantly intertwining. Violent energy fluctuations rippled out like a tidal wave, with the screeching sounds and intense energy waves jolting every person present. Lock them. Seeing the White Protector's formidable move, Soul Flame's face twisted in displeasure. Boom! As Soul Flame's command rang out, a chorus of wails erupted from the black chains, which suddenly broke free from the ink-colored longsword's resistance. They tore through the void and surged toward the White Protector, intending to corrupt his body. In that moment, the White Protector's handsome face revealed a hint of surprise. The two were of equal strength, both in the early stages of 8-star Docian. Yet, Soul Flame had actually broken through his attack. He was not to be underestimated. The White Protector's face grew cold, and the ink-colored longsword hovering in the air suddenly returned to his grip. Moments later, as the black chains neared his body by several feet, he swung the sword with deadly precision. The blade cut through at an extremely sharp angle, using the gap between the chains to strike at Soul Flame's surrounding black mist. Boom, boom, boom. The White Protector's calmness took Soul Flame by surprise. The black mist around Soul Flame trembled violently, clearly affected by the White Protector's earlier attack. Woo! Soon, the black chains were struck by the White Protector's longsword and shattered, breaking into pieces. Phantom-like soul bodies, transparent like wisps of smoke, scattered and shot towards the surrounding area. In their flight, faint chains appeared, binding their soul essence. These guys, they actually forged weapon chains from soul bodies? And something's off about this guy's body. At that moment, Xiao Yan's expression grew solemn. With his soul power and instincts, he could detect a terrifying aura from Soul Flame of the Soul Hall's Mystic Hall Master. It wasn't just the eerie soul bodies created by the black chains, but within Soul Flame himself, a mysterious ancient energy was slowly emanating. Xiao Yan had never encountered such a force, but he vaguely knew. It was faith power. This bastard. Xiao Yan couldn't help but curse inwardly. Xiao Yan didn't fully understand what faith power was, but he knew it was likely a force that could only be valuable to beings of reincarnation-level strength, something far beyond their reach for now. This faith power was likely comparable to the reincarnation power of soul devourers, something that, for Xiao Yan, was apocalyptic, divine, and untouchable. However, the faint trace of faith power within Soul Flame suggested that there might be even stronger 8-star Docian powerhouses within the Soul Clan or Soul Hall. But based on Xiao Yan's prior knowledge, Soul Hall's strongest figures were only at the 7-star or 8-star level. If there were stronger individuals, it would indicate a reincarnation-level power among them. The Soul Clan's predecessors stood tall on the Doyun continent, but compared to the fierce Soul Realm, the Doyun continent still lagged behind. How could there be reincarnation-level power here? At that moment, Xiao Yan's understanding of the Soul Hall's peak strength grew more confused. Truly strange. You seem to have something interesting inside you. At this moment, the White Protector also sensed something, his brow furrowing slightly as he gripped the ink-colored longsword and the silver feather fan in both hands, his gaze wary as he focused on Soul Flame. Earlier, when he attacked Soul Flame's protective black mist with the ink-colored longsword, a ripple of unease had surged in his heart. For an early-stage 8-star Do Xian expert to feel such a disturbance, it was clear that what he was sensing was no ordinary force. The White Protector's power truly lives up to its reputation. Buzz buzz. The moment the sound faded, a terrifying surge of energy erupted around Soul Flame, resembling the brilliance of stars. It swiftly enveloped him, and a special kind of energy seemed to connect with a distant realm. A colossal and imposing creature's phantom loomed, seemingly roaring towards this place from afar. Summoning battle skill? This is bad. Seeing this, the White Protector's expression became grave. His dark sword slashed through the air, sending waves of energy rippling. With the aid of the enchanted feather fan, waves of sinister power surged, powerful enough to tear the sky asunder. Hehe, your opponent is me. Just as the terrifying attack was about to strike Soul Flame, the mystic hall master, Soul Wuji, suddenly appeared. The void twisted, and a special spatial force devoured the White Protector's attack entirely. Damn! In that moment, the White Protector realized something. Turning, he saw the Sin envoys retreating rapidly. It seemed that soon, they would be completely defeated. Soul Flame, hurry up. Something feels off about this place. Blocking the White Protector's attack, Soul Wuji looked up, gazing at Mar, whose form was shrouded in dark green mist, enveloping the entire evil cauldron. The sight of countless humans and sea beasts on the evil tree, projecting their energies towards the cauldron, made Soul Flame uneasy as a thick aura of oppression slowly spread. Give me 5 minutes. Once I summon this guy, we'll have an overwhelming advantage. And the Holy Sea's people seem to be. Soul Flame trailed off as the space around him quivered again, blood mist pouring out. Blood markings began to form in the mist, as if summoning a kingly creature. Once this creature was summoned, the battle would likely be meaningless. Wait a second. What are they doing? Right now, Soul Hall clearly has the upper hand. Why are they still going through all this trouble with the summoning battle skill? Xiao Yan was confused, unable to understand their actions. I remember Mar said that they are being watched not only by Soul Hall, but also by the Holy Sea. Though the Holy Sea's people haven't shown themselves yet, Jixian said, shaking his head. These guys must be summoning creatures to guard against the Holy Sea. And the reason they haven't crushed the Sin envoys and the White Protector might be because of the demon fruit. Once the demon fruit ripens, this place will turn to dust in an instant. Xiao Yan took a deep breath, speaking slowly and deliberately. Next, it's our turn. How about it? Ready to give it a shot? In the next moment, Xiao Yan's gaze sharpened, a bold idea forming in his mind. The demon fruit couldn't fall into their hands, no matter what. All right. Jixian glanced at Xiao Yan in surprise, then nodded in agreement. We'll do it like this. Xiao Yan's excitement grew as he quickly shared his plan with Jixian. Isn't this a bit risky? After all, those are 2 8-star Do Xian experts, and there are plenty of other powerful 7-star and 6-star experts too. Hearing Xiao Yan's plan, Jixian hesitated. Don't worry. I've sensed the presence of Holy Sea experts. We just need to create chaos here and sneak in to take the demon fruit, Xiao Yan said with a smile. All right. The two exchanged a glance, then disappeared, hiding their presence as they moved quietly towards the evil tree. Jiama. Take the remaining forces and defend. Protect the Lord. After a brief pause, the White Protector's eyes narrowed, and he snorted coldly. Lord, Soul Hall's forces are numerous, and they are well prepared. We are no match for them. Jiama, covered in injuries, arrived before the White Protector with less than half the Sin envoys. The rest had perished at the hands of Soul Hall.
Attack!
Without hesitation, Soul Wuji coldly ordered the Soul Hall experts to finish off these enemies. Sacred blessing, heavenly sorrow. At this moment, the White Protector's body was filled with a special green energy, rapidly transforming him into a fallen angel who wielded the power of life and death, exerting the most overwhelming force. Boom! The entire space at the bottom of the lair shook violently, accompanied by sharp, ear-piercing sounds that reverberated through the area like a heavenly chorus. Immortal arts? Let's see which is stronger, the immortal arts or my summoned creatures. Come forth, Dark Nether Soldier. As the fierce green energy filled the space like a sky curtain, Soul Flame's pupils constricted. The blood mist around him trembled, and a massive figure quietly emerged. It was a knight, standing 100 meters tall, clad in black armor. His eyes gleamed with sharpness, and his entire presence exuded an overwhelming oppressive force, filled with a powerful aura of death. Fall before me. Facing the supreme, king-level creature before him, the White Protector suddenly roared. The green energy forming a canopy at the bottom of the lair cascaded down from the top of the sky like a waterfall, rushing toward the creature with lethal intent. In an instant, the entire space grew chaotic, as if it were on the verge of collapsing completely. Roar, roar, roar. The Dark Nether Soldier seemed provoked. With a sudden step forward, it began to trample recklessly. Each time it moved, a wave of dark, deathly power radiated from it, slowly devouring the vitality of the sea beasts around it. Whoosh! The evil canopy directly descended upon the Dark Nether Soldier's body. However, strangely, there was no violent energy fluctuation. It felt as gentle as a breeze. In contrast, the Dark Nether Soldier, like a god of death, calmly stepped forward toward the canopy of the evil tree. Each step seemed to bring it closer to death itself, a chilling aura of impending doom filling the hearts of everyone present. It's over. Seeing this, both Soul Wuji and Soul Flame laughed at the same time. Whoosh whoosh. At that moment, just as the Dark Nether Soldier was only a few dozen meters away from the White Protector and the others, two sharp sounds of wind cutting through the air suddenly rang out. Instantly, the Dark Nether Soldier seemed to be drawn by some unseen force, standing still in place, its black pupils focused on two inconspicuous figures standing beneath its feet. Scarlet Flame Sea. A cold snort echoed, and the Dark Nether Soldier was immediately engulfed by a fiery red flame. Though this level of fire would not hinder it, it drew the creature's attention, causing it to sense a peculiar aura emanating from Xiao Yan. This aura was something only the true rulers of the Dark Dimension possessed. Even in the human realm of the Great Thousand Worlds, only those with reincarnation power could possess such a unique scent. Thus, for a moment, it halted its advance. Who? Seeing that the Dark Nether Soldier, who could have easily obliterated the White Protector and others, was stopped by an unknown individual, Soul Flame and Soul Wuji glared coldly at the ground. Xiao Yan. In just an instant, under the gaze of the two Hall Masters, the dazzling soul power around Xiao Yan exposed his disguise without any effort. After all, the soul powers of the two Hall Masters were far stronger than his, and in their presence, Xiao Yan's disguise was no more than child's play. Discovered, huh? Xiao Yan sneered and waved at the two Hall Masters. However, the intense pressure radiating from them caused Xiao Yan to feel a heavy sense of oppression. Someone, seize him. Seeing Xiao Yan's fearless expression, like a clown playing with fire, Soul Wuji coldly snorted. With the Dark Nether Soldier's arrival, Soul Flame could not break free, as it needed constant control over the Dark Nether Soldier. Soul Wuji, on the other hand, had to remain cautious of the White Protector and Mar, unable to make any rash moves. But Xiao Yan had already made their Soul Hall's blacklist. If they could capture him, it would be a great gift for them. Boom! With a loud roar, several 6-star Do Xian experts from the Soul Hall attacked Xiao Yan like venomous snakes, their ferocity unmatched. Almost there. Xiao Yan smiled at the black-robed Ji Xian behind him, who nodded in response. Whoosh whoosh. You're entering hell, Even though heaven had a path you refused to walk, the several six-star Do Xian experts had no hesitation. Their bodies were enveloped in black mist, and dark chains erupted from their bodies with thunderous force, roaring toward Xiao Yan. "Here's a gift for you. Take it." Xiao Yan grinned mysteriously, quickly retreating. Wood and tree-binding world. A soft grunt escaped his lips, and dazzling green energy surrounded the dark nether soldier. In an instant, the attacks from the Soul Hall experts were blocked, and towering trees appeared, filling the bottom of the lair. "Who's there?" Feeling the sudden surge of wood element energy, the Soul Hall experts felt a chilling sensation and immediately became alert. "Brother Xiao Yan, it's up to you now," Jixin said, as massive green vines and trees erupted from the ground, wrapping around him. His power surged again, and he immediately engaged in battle with the Soul Hall experts. This seemingly unremarkable man had combat strength on par with Xiao Yan? Had one person temporarily tied up several six-star Do Xian experts? This guy was only at the five-star Do Xian early stage in normal circumstances, yet now he possesses the strength of a late-stage six-star Do Xian. Looks like he's no easy opponent. But compared to all this, it's still this guy. The power of Sin has already been defeated, but what Xiao Yan must do now is temporarily assist Sin, as the Holy Seas experts have not yet arrived. If Sin is completely defeated, the demon fruit will likely fall into the hands of the Soul Hall. So, no matter what, Xiao Yan and Jixin still want to give it a try. What is this guy trying to do? At this moment, Hun Wuji and Jiama were locked in a standoff, while Hun Yan was preparing to control the Dark Nether Soldier to eliminate everyone. When he saw Xiao Yan's bizarre actions, his heart trembled, and an ominous premonition flashed through his mind. Big guy. Xiao Yan had just climbed to the head of the Dark Nether Soldier. Looking at the heavily armored and perfectly protected Dark Nether Soldier, he smiled lightly. However, the creature's strength was likely comparable to that of a human 8-star Do Xian level expert. In an instant, a mysterious force pressed down on Xiao Yan, increasing the pressure around him. Boom! The Dark Nether Soldier shook arrogantly, and a wave of dark power surged out of its body like a tidal wave, sending Xiao Yan flying away. It seemed as though it wanted to crush this insignificant ant in one strike. Buzz! At this moment, the ancient ruler of heavenly flames behind Xiao Yan erupted with an unprecedented dark energy, easily enveloping Xiao Yan in a protective shield, preventing the tidal wave of energy from consuming him. It stood still like a stubborn rock on his shoulder, its gaze turning to the darkest shade of black. There was no shine, just a horrifying darkness that seemed to fall into the deepest abyss of hell, eerie and unnatural. Crash! However, the other experts were not so fortunate. As soon as the dark tidal wave was released, the bottom of the nest shook violently like an erupting volcano. The once sturdy branches of the evil tree fell apart, with only the canopy remaining still. The other Soul Hall experts and Sin envoys also suffered varying degrees of intimidation. Countless trees at the bottom of the nest grew wildly. Under Jixin's control, they continuously intertwined and solidified. With the arrival of the dark tidal wave, an overwhelming mix of dark energy and vibrant green life covered the entire area. Even the air became a strange mixture of death and vitality. Hehe, the Dark Nether Soldier? The Netherworld was originally part of the Xiao clan. Using summoning battle skills in front of the Xiao clan's descendants is foolish, but outside this nest, the holy light is too strong. With my mere soul fragment, it might be? Forget it. Let me pass through this first. Soul Hall and Sin. They're truly interesting. At this moment, a mocking laugh rang from within Xiao Yan's imperial flame ring, as though it came from an ancient emperor waking from slumber. That aura seemed to contain a purifying chant that cleansed the world of all filth. Whether it was the evil dark power or other forces, they all vanished under the resonance of this sound. Who? At this moment, Xiao Yan looked extremely strange, his sweat pouring down like rain, soaking his clothes in an instant. He was undergoing a bizarre transformation, because at this moment, under the manifestation of his black pupils, Xiao Yan's pale hand reached up gently toward the head of the Dark Nether Soldier. It was as though an ancient emperor was bestowing rewards upon his subjects, or like a loyal minister bowing to an ancient emperor. The black light covered everything, burning the space red. At this moment, countless people watched in astonishment as the dark nether soldier and Xiao Yan's bizarre interaction unfolded, a thrilling sensation rising from the bottom of their hearts. Damn, what is going on here? Looking at the strange actions of the giant dark nether soldier on the ground, Jiao Ma and the others, while fending off Han Wuji's attacks, roared. Fortunately, Xiao Yan's appearance had bought them valuable time. They didn't have time to consider Xiao Yan's intentions and could only focus on dealing with the Soul Hall experts in front of them. This guy, can he control the dark nether soldier's consciousness? Who exactly is he? At this moment, Han Yan's eyes glinted with a flash of light as he stared in shock at the bizarre scene of Xiao Yan and the dark nether soldier. The dark nether soldier was a summoning creature that he had painstakingly summoned from the netherworld, one that could rival a human 8-star Do Xian in the early stage. It was one of Han Yan's trump cards. Now, a mere 5-star Do Xian in the mid-stage was turning it into this state. A violent killing intent spread across Han Yan's eyes. This time, let's see how you handle this. Heavenly Meng Evil Sword. At this moment, White Protector, seeing the two frozen in place, turned his gaze back to Han Yan. An unparalleled killing intent surged forward. With a wave of White Protector's pale hand, a long black sword transformed into a dark beam of light, shooting straight through the space between him and Han Yan. The evil sacred sword overshadowed the entire nest, like the grim reaper gazing down upon all living beings. The life and death of everyone was at the whim of its wielder. As soon as the dark green evil sword appeared, the entire nest was filled with an overwhelming sense of unease. The sword constantly shifted, its blade radiating sharp, icy gleams, standing tall in the sky, poised to strike down with the force of thunder at any moment. To think that the White Protector can use such a powerful move. Looking at the dark green sword's aura spreading like a rainbow through everyone's minds, Jiao Ma smiled faintly. He knew that this level of attack could truly slay a mid-stage 8-star Do Xian expert. The fact that the Soul Flame was forcing the White Protector to resort to such measures was a testament to its immense power. You should worry about yourself first. Prepare to perish under my hand. Swish. With a wicked grin, Soul Flame paid no further attention to Jiao Ma. At that moment, a series of loud metallic clanking sounds erupted from Soul Wuji's body, filled with an uncontrollable, eerie, ghostly force, roaring towards Jiao Ma and the others. Crack! But Jiao Ma was clearly no pushover either. The dark green evil light surged again, utilizing the apocalyptic evil sword in the sky, able to resist Soul Wuji's attack for a time. Both sides were now locked in a deadlock. Soul Flame, let's end this with a single strike. Having used such a move, the White Protector's face was pale, but his expression was unusually solemn, even revealing a strange smile at the corner of his lips. Under the evil sacred sword, all were but ants. Swish. The White Protector's strength truly lives up to its reputation, but thinking that this can wipe me out is a bit too far-fetched. Return, all souls. Looking up at the White Protector, who regarded him with the superiority of an emperor, Soul Flame gave a cold laugh. At that same moment, the blood mist surrounding Soul Flame began to tremble. The sounds of vengeful ghosts howling, souls crying, and broken spirits wailing filled the air, creating an atmosphere of desolation. In an instant, the entire space was transformed into a true hell, a special domain for imprisoning and torturing broken souls. Even the dark green evil sword standing in the sky seemed to emit a sense of melancholy. This guy's internal power, it's not right. At this moment, the White Protector still did not dare to lower his guard. While controlling the evil sword, he watched Soul Flame closely, ready to act at any sign of weakness. Faith Soul Chain. Come forth, my servants. Haha. Moments later, countless ethereal, translucent souls and broken spirits shot out from Soul Flame's body, fleeing in all directions. However, each of their bodies was bound by a thin, blood-colored chain, linking them all together. The wailing souls struggled fiercely, creating a truly spectacular scene. Buzz. In an instant, the blood-colored chain solidified, transforming into a chain the size of an arm, covered in countless tiny markings, like the death glyphs meticulously carved by the Grim Reaper. They exuded an incredibly terrifying aura, each of them releasing waves of incomprehensible power. Faith power? How is that possible? How can one wield faith power without reaching the reincarnation stage? The White Protector's voice trembled as he spoke, staring at the faint, blood-colored chain. He could feel a true, death-like fluctuation emanating from it. Faith power. This was a force that could rival reincarnation power, a power so mysterious that it exceeded their understanding. What they did know was that if struck by this faith soul chain, only soul annihilation awaited. Die. Soul Flame did not answer. He merely exposed his face from the black mist, snarling fiercely. At that moment, his arm swung violently, cutting through the sky towards the White Protector, who stood in the heavens. Evil sword of the dark aura. The White Protector saw this and, with no time to think, raised his voice to its peak, furiously swinging the dark green evil sword to meet the oncoming attack. Boom! In the pitch-black space, countless dark green evil lights and blood-colored black energy ripples spread out, their arc growing wider, temporarily disrupting the battle in other areas. Like an evil sacred mark that could erase the world, wherever it passed, sand and stones disintegrated, and the earth trembled uncontrollably. Moments later, unable to withstand the force of the evil mark, the ground was easily torn open, creating a massive chasm. Such a scene was nothing short of terrifying, shaking every onlooker and challenging their understanding. This soul flame actually exposed his faith power ahead of time. But it doesn't matter. White Protector, hold on. At this moment, Mar, transformed into a mist of dark green and attached to the evil cauldron, softly spoke. However, as his voice faded, the entire top of the lair suddenly became damp, as if something had been added by Mar. Yet it was completely overshadowed by the overwhelming attacks from White Protector and Soul Flame. On the other side, with Xiao Yan and the Dark Nether Soldier. What exactly is going on? At this moment, Xiao Yan seemed to pierce through this space, entering a realm of endless darkness. There was no life, no vitality, nothing living, only a true dead zone. Just as Xiao Yan was feeling frustrated, he suddenly noticed in the dark space the massive form of the Dark Nether Soldier quietly lying on the ground. In front of the soldier, an elderly man with a weathered face slowly spoke, as if reprimanding the Dark Nether Soldier for something. Most strikingly, at the end of the old man's hair, 22 flames flickered and danced. Even the imperial flame ring on his hand was quietly floating in front of him. Behind him, the ancient ruler of heavenly flames stood tall, its presence now firmly established.